This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens, on its peace of mind, on its sense of security. No city does, no state, no people.
Let us be clear. It does not have to be this way.
His unique character is one of integrity and honesty, and he's well respected throughout the entire conference.
Hello, I'm Robert Costa in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. Authorities in Maine are searching for the gunman who killed 18 people and injured more than a dozen others in a mass shooting Wednesday night. The suspect has been identified as a 40-year-old Army reservist, Robert Card. Officials say he opened fire at 2 locations in Lewiston, Maine, and remains armed and dangerous. He faces an arrest warrant for 8 counts of murder. CBS News correspondent Bradley Blackburn joins us now from Lewiston. Bradley, thanks for being here. What is the latest on the search?
Well, Robert, we know law enforcement officials from multiple agencies are participating in this manhunt right now. ATF agents, U.S. Marshals, all assisting the FBI and local officials here trying to locate this suspect, 40-year-old Robert Card. The manhunt has now been going on approaching 24 hours, and so the urgency grows with every passing hour. They are expanding their search into heavily wooded areas surrounding this community, even into the waterways. So they're looking at all possible avenues to try and get a read on where he may be, because there's real concern, Robert, that there is still an ongoing threat to this community and to the law enforcement officials that are trying to track him down. And until they're able to capture him, this community is grieving while they're essentially frozen in place.
How are people in Lewiston responding? I know they're grieving. What else is it like there on the ground?
It's eerie, Robert, because so much of this city is shut down. People really are heeding this warning. You go walk down the street here and restaurants are closed, gas stations are closed, schools are closed, and so you don't see anybody out really in this environment. They're staying home, trying to stay safe. And another visible sign of that, Robert, is that you'll notice behind me, we're outside of the bowling alley here. There really is no makeshift memorial like you would so often see following a mass shooting. We've seen it time and time again, but not at this location. I think it is a sign that people are listening to officials, staying home, and we know that the town is planning a vigil once they're sure that it's safe.
And finally, Bradley, what are the next steps for law enforcement and for community leaders at this point?
Well, they're certainly continuing to probe what happened here, Robert. How the background of this suspect. We know at this point that he is an Army reservist, somebody who's very familiar with weapons. And there were some clear warning signs here with concerns about his mental health. We know over the summer that his own military commanders were concerned about some warning signs and were, in fact, the ones that referred him to treatment for 2 weeks in the summer. From a law enforcement bulletin, we understand that he had self-reported experiencing delusions and hearing voices sometime more recently. So there are real questions about why those warning signs perhaps were missed, what could have been done. But the main priority, again, Robert, is to locate this individual and to start to provide some closure to this community so that they can no longer worry about being harmed and start to heal.
Healing. We wish the best for that community, and thank you for your reporting. Bradley Blackburn, thank you. To discuss the Biden administration's response to the Maine shooting, CBS News chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes joins us now. Nancy, thank you for being here. Tell us more about the Biden administration's response to this tragic shooting.
Hi, Robert. Well, we got a statement from the president earlier today. We know that he has been briefed routinely on the situation in Maine. He said that he and his wife, the First Lady, had been praying for the victims, but that he didn't want to stop at prayers. He called for a new assault weapons ban, banning not just assault weapons, but high-capacity magazines, a bill to enact universal background checks to require safe storage of guns and immunity and ending immunity from liability for gun manufacturers. It's a pretty familiar list because we hear it from the White House anytime there is a mass shooting like this one, sadly, but we also know that the votes simply aren't there on Capitol Hill, particularly in the Republican-led House of Representatives. There was an interesting moment today. The Vice President, Kamala Harris, was meeting with the Prime Minister of Australia, who has been here for a state visit. And she pointed out the incredible disparity between gun deaths here in the United States, about 40,000 gun deaths in 2019 alone, compared to Australia, where they have very different gun laws, much more restrictive, only 229 gun deaths in all of 2019. She said it doesn't have to be that way, which drew loud applause from both the Americans and the Australians in the room, Robert.
Turning to the ongoing war in Israel, what is the latest on what's happening in Gaza and how the administration is evaluating the violence there?
Well, the administration says that some humanitarian aid trucks, about a dozen of them, did manage to get into Gaza over the past 24 hours. So some aid is trickling in, though they said it has not been fast enough. The president, in a press conference yesterday, Robert, said that he doesn't trust the numbers coming out of Gaza, coming from Hamas, about the number of civilians that have been killed. He says he's been told by his aides that those numbers are not reliable. But the White House acknowledged today that while they don't think those numbers are reliable, they still concede that the number of civilian deaths has most likely been in the thousands. And while they are reluctant to criticize Israel, they do continue to say that they believe that civilian lives should be spared whenever possible.
Let's dig a little bit more into that and listen to what John Kirby had to say today at the White House.
Well, we all know that the Gazan Ministry of Health is just a front for Hamas. It's run by Hamas, a terrorist organization. I've said it myself up here. We can't take anything coming out of Hamas, including the so-called Ministry of Health, at face value.
Nancy, as you listen to Kirby and evaluate and report on the White House, how do you see the White House and especially President Biden grappling with the dynamics inside the Palestinian area, inside the Israeli government? How are they balancing all of the different factors at once?
I think it's complicated, Robert, because on one hand, they are working to show the world that they support Israel's right to defend itself, that what happened to innocent Israeli civilians was heinous and deserves a response by the Israeli government. At the same time, they're well aware of public sentiment around the world and certainly concern for Palestinian civilians as well, and what they are facing, what they have faced historically. You already have, for example, the UN Secretary General a couple of days ago saying that that international law has been broken here by both Hamas and the Israeli military. So they know that that criticism exists. And while they don't want to criticize the Israeli government directly, they want to make it clear that they are worried about these civilians. And that's why the White House has been pushing for this humanitarian pause, basically not an entire ceasefire, but holding off on, certainly on a ground invasion, until either civilians can get out or more aid can get in.
Nancy Cordes, thank you.
You're welcome.